Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
As you may know, during the Trump inauguration, over 200 of our comrades were arrested, and all of them really need our support around their legal funds. It costs a lot of money to help defend these people, so we are releasing a t-shirt with the amazing action against Richard Spencer, the fucking neo-Nazi, getting punched in the face with the slogan, "Make Racist Afraid Again," because we as a community need to band together and refuse to normalize this bullshit behavior. So go get your shirt, let everyone know that you won't normalize this bullshit behavior, and help support our comrades that desperately need those funds.
We're only doing these shirts for a limited run, and when the fundraiser is over, we won't have them anymore. So get them now. Support our comrades. WhичSideCollective.org.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
This is episode 220.
Yeah, we talk with author of the vegan children's book, Libby Finds Vegan Sanctuary, by Julia Feliz Bruick.
But first, here's our side.
Today I just wanted to go over a very brief, not at all encompassing history of the animal liberation movement. A lot of people think that the animal liberation movement is a new movement. In fact, it's not. In 1821, Jeremy Bentham was the first person to speak out against animal cruelty. He was an English philosopher, jurist, and social reformer, and is considered the founder of utilitarianism. In 1824, the RSPCA was founded in a London coffee shop. Back then, they were known as the SPCA, or the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Royal patronage followed in 1837, and Queen Victoria gave permission to add the Royal R in 1840, making them the RSPCA that we all know today. In 1835, in the United Kingdom, the Cruelty to Animals Act was created, and its purpose was to protect all animals from harm. In 1850, Martin Tupper wrote a ballad known as Mercy to Animals, a Ballad of Humanity. His ballad showed how inhumane humans can actually be. In 1865, America followed up with the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, which was created by Henry Bergh. The original Bands of Hope were formed in the 1870s. They were children's clubs dedicated to fostering kindness to animals. In 1881, the Bands of Mercy organization was created in order to inform young children of animal abuse. From these Bands of Hope came Bands of Mercy, which was created in 1881 in order to inform young children of animal abuse. In 1925, the Animals Protection Act was created in order to benefit all animals and not just regular household pets. It provided protection from birds to farm animals. In 1940, we found one of the first documented cases of vivisection when a man named Jonas Salk was determined to find a polio cure at the cost of 100,000 rhesus monkeys. He ended up finding the vaccine, but his treatment towards the monkeys was brutal. During that time in the 1950s, we continued to see a rise in animal testing and vivisection. In 1963, the Hunt Saboteurs Association was created. In 1966, we saw the Animal Welfare Act. This act regulated the transportation and handling of small animals that were being used for testing purposes. In 1971, Greenpeace was formed, soon after becoming one of the first whale-watching organizations. In 1981, Paul Watson left Greenpeace to form Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. In 1972, Band of Mercy was created by HSA, taking on the name of Old Children's Clubs. Band of Mercy damaged vehicles used to transport dogs to hunts. After being released from prison in 1976, Ronnie Lee renamed Band of Mercy to ALF, the Animal Liberation Front. In 1980, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals was created by Ingrid Newkirk and Alex Pacheco. In 1985, the Improved Standards for Laboratory Animals Act was put in place to provide regulations for lab animals. It made the lab scientists walk their animals, provide large living spaces, and it regulated the amount of pain that could be inflicted on animals. In 1990, the Pet Act provided a holding period for cats and dogs to determine if an animal is fit for adoption, and it provided a background of each animal. It also made it so animals needed to be vaccinated before they are sold. In 1992, the ELF, or Earth Liberation Front, was first formed as a sister organization to the ALF. In the late 1990s, Stop Huntington Animal Cruelty, SHAC, emerged. Their sole focus was to bring down one of the world's worst animal testing laboratories, Huntington Life Sciences, also known as HLS. In 2005, PETA was accused of aiding terrorists by United States Senator Jim Inhofe, stating that they sided with domestic terrorists because they gave grants to the ALF and the ELF. And in 2013, Direct Action Everywhere, also known as DXE, was founded. I hope you enjoyed this super brief, not at all comprehensive history and timeline of the animal liberation movement. If you think that we missed any key moments or organizations, let us know.
This is the spot in the show where we're going to beg you for some money. It's an ad. Let's get through it together. We would really appreciate it if you head on over to whichsidecollective.org and help support the show. And in return, we'll send you some sweet shit. And you get to pick that shit that we send you. It's kind of how it works. You can pick a patch. You can pick t-shirts, hoodies, totes. We have lots of stuff. We have zines. So head on over to whichsidecollective.org. Give us your money. We'll give you some shit. And we'll all be happy.
While you're checking things out, be sure to check us out on social media. Just go to whichsidepodcast.com, click on the social tab, and you can find all the social media accounts that we have.
And if you're looking for a super simple way to help out the show, just go rate and review us on your favorite podcast aggregator. iTunes is the most popular. It helps us out the most. It just makes it easier for people to find the show. So if you have a second, go rate and review us.
Give us that 5 stars. Want to hear your voice saying fuck shit damn at the end of an episode? Just dial 424-ANARCHY and leave a message. That's 424-262-7249.
With Libby Finds Vegan Sanctuary, what actually was your inspiration to actually create this book?
About 3 years ago, my mom found, she was friends with a family who happened to have a turkey chained in their backyard. And my mom approached them about letting her go. And I remember she, from Florida called me. Well, she tried to call me, but emailed me in a panic, they're going to give up the turkey. What do I do with the turkey? So that's how Libby came into my life. She now lives actually in a sanctuary called Kindred Spirit Sanctuary in Florida. That's where she lives now. And basically, I was always trying to think of ways to raise funds for Libby. And sort of 3 things happened. I was trying to figure out what to do that year. I was taking a digital illustration course, and my son was 18 months old. And I was really frustrated that there wasn't anything age appropriate that I could read to him regarding our lifestyle. And of course, we do have Ruby Roth books, which are amazing, but my son is really rough with things. He's really hyper, and, paper books just did not last with him. And so I got this idea of, why don't I try to create a board book for parents? I'm sure, there are other parents out there who would appreciate having, this kind of tool to have their little ones, start on their own little journey, and of course explain to them, in simple terms, start to explain to them what veganism is and the difference between, right and wrong and why we choose our lifestyle. I mean, I also wanted to do something that was, I got so sick of going to bookstores and everything is, farm animals and, farmer whatever and the happy cow getting milked and, circus and zoos and I just wanted to put something out there to oppose that, something different. Mm-hmm. Also to explain sanctuaries, because sanctuaries, are places that most vegans will probably go to and take their children to. And just, sanctuary is actually, for children, it can be a really difficult term. So, just a way to get those ideas.
I'm super excited that this exists now, because with raising our daughter, it was always a challenge during that time frame to find those books. We would have to go to the library and pre-read everything, because every once in a while we would forget, and then you would go get 3 pages in and you're like, oh, now they're murdering this pig, right?
Yes. Or, oh, what a sweet story. Oh, it's about a zoo.
Yeah, exactly. It was always so frustrating.
Yes.
And if you haven't gone through that, you really don't know that problem exists. Yes. So I'm super excited that this exists and is available for parents now.
Thank you. Yes, I'm excited too. And it's just really exciting for me as well to be able to raise Libby's voice, tell her story and just help parents with basically an important part of getting our children's journey started.
Do you have any plans to do any more children's books in this style?
In this style, probably not for a while. Unless it's a very specific project and I have the funding, because it is pretty expensive to make them and then store them, because you can't just, print as you go. But I am working on different books that would be more suitable for paper books, regular books.
Are those coming soon, or are they kind of on the far horizon?
Soon. Yeah, I have one that I just have to, it's almost done, and I just have to, finish it. And actually, I have 2 of them, and I just have so many ideas. I get sidetracked, and then I start working on something else, and then I'll come back to it. And yeah, I would love to do more board books, but I'm excited to try to do other types of books as well.
So what is your origin? What brought you not just to veganism, but also activism in general?
I had moved to Ireland, and I was... Did you ever go on that site, Care2?
Yeah, the petition site?
Yeah, when they first started, it was sort of like a hub to get to know other people that were, trying to be active and in different issues. And I was in a group, and I randomly clicked on a link, and it led me to a movie called Earthlings, which I thought, hey, that looks interesting. And then 5 seconds later, the credits rolled. I'm, bawling my eyes out, and I said never again. And that's what brought me to veganism.
So did you go cold turkey?
Yes. Well,
pun?
Yes and no. I didn't actually. One of the things that I think I didn't get from the film was the part about the dairy and the eggs. So I did go cold tofurkey overnight. And then I was reading a random book, and it sort of just clicked, and then I became full vegan. So I like to say that, yes, it happened overnight, because I know that I would have done it overnight if I had even realized what dairy and eggs were actually supporting as well. But for some reason, I didn't make the connection after watching Earthlings.
You go through this, you make this connection, and now you're like, aha. But how do you actually transform that into your everyday life and make it weave in through all the other issues you care about?
At the time, or now?
Now, like what does that look like now for you?
Well, it's been 9 years this year, so it's been a process. And now I've gotten to the point where I realize, I'm so passionate about, helping non-human animals, but I need to be intersectional in my activism, to be even more efficient, because basically all systems of oppression are basically interlinked and overlap in many ways. And something that I was reading that finally clicked was, otherization is the same thing that people do to non-humans, but that's the same thing that drives, white supremacy as well. Mm-hmm. So it's really all connected, and I feel that I can be the best vegan that I can be if I'm ignoring a whole group of animals, which are humans.
What do you think we as an animal rights community can do to really focus more on that intersectionality? Because for me personally, I was introduced to activism through animal rights, but as I've progressed, like my focus is now more on everything else. Like, definitely. If that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think, I'm a vegan of color, and some of the things that I've read other, I say so-called vegans say is just completely disturbing. The day that Trump got elected, there was a person that called themselves vegan and publicly said, yes, now these rats can go back to the sewer of Mexico that they came from, or something horrible like that. And, it's just that kind of thing. And when you're trying to speak to other vegans and tell them about your experiences, with racism and how your experience is different, and they just, are constantly trying to silence you, and it can make it really, really difficult to have this trust in the community when your own community doesn't, think about your rights. And the fact that, Black and brown vegans still are fighting for their rights, as well as, trans vegans and other vegans that are in marginalized communities. So it's really important, I think, for vegans to just, open themselves up to and realize that non-humans need us to work on so many other things, because if we don't work on all these other issues, how do we expect people to take us seriously and to pay attention to the work that we're trying to do for non-human animals? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that's always frustrated me is that we, as an animal rights community, talk so much about speciesism and institutionalized speciesism and how it affects everything that we do, but yet, we don't really hear the same conversations around institutionalized racism and how that affects not just those people, but all the movements, and how we can be working together to fight all forms of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't understand how people don't connect those dots.
Yes. No, and it was horrific. I've seen other things again, like, can we move on now from, I know the Women's March was problematic for some people, but can we move on now from talking about feminism and get back to, non-human animals? And it's like, how can you ignore all these horrible things that are happening? Mm-hmm. How is that possible? And I know non-humans are so important, and they need us on their side, but how is it possible for people to just ignore, everything else? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't get the idea of not just fighting oppression, right? In all forms, all forms and fashions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you think about it, I'm also in groups of non-vegans of color, and I can't even respond to some of the things that they post because it's true. They'll say, "Oh, white veganism," just they only care about animals and not us, and they're okay with racism but not like puppy abuse and things like that, and it's horrific. And I can't be like, no, but I mean, I do try to say, well, I try to speak up for all groups that are oppressed, but this is what other communities are seeing and what they think veganism is. And it's problematic. How can we be taken seriously if we're not open to, fighting all oppression?
I think a key thing is being a true ally really means taking on the same risks, right? So, I mean, if you want to be a true ally, that means you have to get in the street with them as well, or whatever that particular risk might be for that situation. And I think that's where a lot of animal rights activists fail. They'll say like, "Oh, I agree," but they don't do any of the actions to show that they're a true ally. Yes,
and you'll see that too, like especially with the Women's March. All those photos that were floating around online. Are you going to show up to the next Black Lives Matters protest as well? And it's true. It's true. I mean, I invited vegans to the rally, and not a single vegan that I knew showed up. So I don't know. I just don't know how to how else to put it.
Yeah, no, I'm right there. Yeah, it's.
And I feel like we have to be careful about the way that we do things as well. I recently saw photos of people dressed as vegetables outside of a Black Lives Matter close down at the inauguration, where they were closing down an entry point, and their signs said, "Make America Vegan Again."
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
That's not helping.
I think we can all agree right here that's just wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Not the right moment. or at all, or ever.
Yeah. One of the things that was just brought to my attention that you do is the Vegan Craftivist Project.
Yes.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Yes, so I moved to Switzerland about 6 years ago, and before I moved here, I had seen a project of making sweaters for chickens, and I purposely learned to knit just so I could make sweaters for chickens, rescued hens, and through my journey of wanting to use knitting for good, I found this movement called Craftivism. And it was actually missing the vegan component. Obviously I craft, everything I use is vegan. And I thought for people like me who aren't able to get out and protest because at the time, I was in a foreign country. I didn't know the laws. I didn't speak the language. I was pretty isolated. So I thought, this is a way that I can voice how I feel about, why I'm vegan for animals. And the idea is gentle activism. It's sort of a bit of a mindfulness to reflect, why you're vegan. And it was actually helpful because at that point, when I started the project, I think I had been vegan for over 5 years. So it was nice to just sit down and, not that I forgot why I was vegan, but just, think about the process, where I was when I first went vegan and where I was when I was working on the project. And it's been a few years that I've been doing it. And, I recently got a letter from someone that said, I'm a disabled vegan. And this was great because it made me feel like I can still be involved and I can still speak up for non-humans through creating something with my hands. And the purpose of craftivism is to create something with a purpose, or to speak in a way where the person viewing what you're doing gets a message. And the project that I'm working on is collecting banners where vegans write, the reason why they're vegan specifically for non-humans. And what I wanted to do was make it into a big, even bigger banner and display it around, the world or different places to just get it out there and for people to see why vegans would, be vegans for non-human animals and what that means for us.
So are you still taking submissions for that?
Yes, I am.
How can people do that?
So you can find me on Facebook under the Vegan Craftivist Project. No, the Vegan Craftivist, sorry. And I also have a blog, what is it? vegancraftivist.blogspot.ch. But it's easier to just look me up on Facebook, the Vegan Craftivist.
Expect a submission soon.
Great. And right now I'm actually working on, I was so frustrated because, I really wish I was in the US being able to, speak up and join all the protests and marches. And I'm trying to channel, right now, that craftivism into, the frustration and the anger that I feel into creating smaller banners with little, sayings. Like today's, the ones that I posted was Black Lives Matter, and explaining exactly what that means, because, a lot of people just, for some reason, there's, what's the word? They just have this idea that Black Lives Matter is something that it's not. So I'm trying to use the platform that I have to sort of speak up for different groups and try to spread awareness as well. So, and yeah.
Well, that's really awesome. I just wanted to say thanks for taking the time to talk with us. And what are some ways that people can find your book and get involved with all your projects?
Yes, thanks for having me on, and it was really great speaking to you guys. And everybody can find the book on Amazon, Libby Finds Vegan Sanctuary, and you can find the book page on Facebook under the same name, Libby Finds Vegan Sanctuary. And like I said, the Vegan Craftivist is also on Facebook as well.
Well, awesome.
And if you want to, I'm sorry, if you want to look at my art. If you want to look at my artwork, you can go to juliafeliz.com as well, just for fun.
Whichside Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Whichside Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always,
Julia in Switzerland. Fuck, shit, damn!